Alright, a mount tier list. In this tier list I will be putting a link in the description again. So it's divided into flying mounts, ground mounts and water mounts, and then it's also both a tier list and a sort of progression guide. So we've got the tier list divided into level 15 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 65 on the flying mounts, and that's just starting with Nightwing, which does unlock at level 15. So this is your classic first ever flying mount. It's the B tier for the level 15 to 25 just because it is very slow, only 100 stamina. So like it can hover over water, it is pretty nice for getting around I guess. But personally I just prefer to use like a faster ground mount, like I'll have Univolt, Surfent and then a grapple glider. But I guess Nightwing is kind of those three things baked into one, just a lot slower. But if you just wait a little bit longer, you unlock Elfidren, level 20, pretty fast when flying, but also has this sort of walking thing when it runs out of stamina. Can't go over water and stuff like that because it will just drown, but it is a little bit faster than Nightwing and probably a little bit more fun of a combat pal as well, but that's not really what we're getting into at this stage here. Then we have the S tier for the early game Vanworm, still pretty slow, still not something that I really use, but if you do want to go exploring, like it can be pretty nice if you do want to go egg hunting on Sakurajima or like Astral Mountain or something like that, but still pretty slow with just 850. Most of the ground mounts at this stage of the game will be a little bit faster for just getting around, and then you can do some grapple or even use like a Croagiro and a glider to get up the cliffs and stuff like that. So the early game flying mounts are a little bit on the slower side, but can be a bit nice if you don't want to go that grapple route. Then we have level 25 to 50. So going down here, at level 40, pretty late unlocks here for Suzaku and Suzaku Aqua. That's why they're ranked in the B tier. Not terrible, but also not very fast, but they do have a ton of stamina. So if you do prefer to have a mount that you can just sort of point in a direction and go forward and then start scrolling your phone or something, I guess they can be pretty nice. But overall a little bit late and a little bit slower than other options. So here we have something like Phalaris in A tier, Ragnarok as well, a little bit like of the same tech level, and it's also what you kind of prefer here. Phalaris will be a little bit faster, but Ragnarok will work better as a sort of combat hybrid mount. Since it does convert your damage to fire, you can have the fire attacks, give some grass attacks to Ragnarok. If you pop like a seed mine on a target, let's say they get rooted, then the player will be dealing double damage. And Ragnarok will be dealing double damage with any sort of fire attack it does. So I prefer taking Ragnarok here if I can. And then we also need to compare something like Ragnarok and Beacon. So Beacon will be a little bit slower than Ragnarok, 100 speed slower, a little bit more stamina and unlocked a little bit earlier. And Beacon does the same thing here. You give it a water skill fruit, you can attack, soak a target, and then the player deals double damage with the electric attacks from the conversion from the saddle effect. Ragnarok will have this sort of same effect here with the root effect, but then why I put Beacon in S tier is just because it does learn better attacks itself. So Ragnarok, it could be S tier if you have a lot of skill fruits, because usually what I do with these mounts is I'm going catching with the Ring of Mercy as well, and then Ragnarok with its natural fire attacks will just burn the target down. But if you do find something like a Lightning Streak skill fruit, it can be very good, and you can have it up here in S tier, or if you get like Airblade and stuff like that. So Ragnarok is mostly limited down to A tier just because of its natural learn set at this stage of the game, just burning targets through Mercy Ring. So with some skill fruits, S tier, but Beacon, S tier with Lightning Streak. And then Shadowbeak as well. It's faster, it has more stamina. With Divine Disaster and Ring of Mercy, it works very well for catching pals and fighting dungeon bosses and stuff like that. Just an overall powerhouse pal, but does lose out on this sort of hover over water effect where it starts to run. It did get quite a lot of speed buffs in Tides of Terraria, so it is a very nice mount now. But not unlocked until level 47, so you'll probably make a choice of something like Ragnarok with skill fruits or Beacon and then transition into Shadowbeak once you do unlock it. But keep in mind that it will drown. And then for the endgame pals, Frostallion knocked down here just because of the saddle effect not being as good right now. It's pretty good against neutral targets, but there aren't that many neutral targets to actually fight. And since it is a sealed realm pal, it can be a little bit trickier to actually go and catch it early compared to something like Frostallion or even Jet Dragon. Celine in A tier got heavily buffed in Ties of Terraria as well. It's a lot faster now. It keeps the hover effect, but the downside is that you can't use your weapons on it. So using it for mass catching might not be that good, but it does have one of the best partner skills in the game for combat, as well as being pretty fast. It's just a little bit slower than Frostallion Knock, but it equals Shadowbeak speed. Saddle level 53, so just a decent all-rounder there if you do want a sort of mount slash combat pal. Xenolord ranked a little bit lower as well, just because by the time you do get a nice Xenolord with Swift, Eternal Engine, stuff like that, like you are probably sort of semi-done with the game. It depends a little bit on how quickly you get your raid army going, go get your Xenolord, and hatch, I don't know, like 1,000 of them to get the passives. But it's ranked a little bit lower, as well as just not having that sort of hover effect over water, and also just being a little bit slower than something like Jet Dragon because of the way the partner skill works. It's not multiplicative, it's additive, so it just doesn't really reach that sort of top speed that something like Jet Dragon does, and then it just drowns. Doesn't really work in dungeons the same way. So just overall a couple of negatives there, but you can use your weapons on it. And then Frostallion, up here in S tier, just because it's such a capable combat pal on top of being decently fast. It's got 1800, so not as fast as something like Jet Dragon, but it does have a lot of stamina. It doubles its own ice damage if you have it on 4 stars. Adds 40% player attack, so just a good pal overall for doing a bit of combat and flying, and just excellent against something like Xenolord as well. And then Jet Dragon, of course, being like the go-to all-rounder mount. Downside is you can't use your weapons, but then it does have stuff like Meteor Rain, so it can clear out enemy bases on its own. You don't really need to shoot from it if you're just flying around the world. So just overall, as a pure mount, Jet Dragon, I think, takes the win in all categories really, just being able to do dungeons, enemy bases, flying over water, being the fastest, and also having great attacks on its own. So then we're going to go down to ground mounts. Same thing here, divided into parts with leveling. Starting with Rush Ore. So the only reason this one is up here, it can barely jump over ledges. It will get stuck on stairs and stuff like that. So as a mount, it is pretty terrible. But with a tech level of 6 and having this attack that really just clears out nodes, getting a Rush Ore early, taking it into any form of dungeon and just clearing out like the Paldium fragments can give you tons of Paldium fragments. It's a good pal for just mining if you line it up to hit multiple nodes on one rush. So it's more of a utility mount, but I definitely would not be traveling the world on it. Then you have something like Dire Howl being pretty fast on its own. Low tech level, but also very low stamina on Dire Howl. But it is a decent combat, like it has decent attack stats, and it's an early game pal. So Dire Howl is something that you can just go and catch. Then you go and catch a Serpent, and at level 10 you're ready to go explore stuff like Faebreak and Sakurajima, go egg hunting, or just exploring the world in general as a new player. Univolt, my personal favorite here for this stage of the game, and I'll keep Univolt as my main mount up around until I get myself a beacon, mainly for this Ring of Mercy interaction and having a lot of damage with the lightning attacks. So you can do a ton of mass catching really efficiently on Univolt. You just mount up, have your Ring of Mercy, use the electric attacks. The targets, like if you use Lightning Streak, anything around your level is going to go down to 1 health, and they're going to be electrified, giving you that bonus catch chance. So just having Univolt at this level 14, you can catch it very early as well, around what do you say, the area where Wyvern spawns, I guess, or Beacon, that sort of area on the map. You'll find a ton of low level Univolts. You can also buy it from the merchant in the small settlement if you have a couple of gold coins left over. So really just a good all-rounder. Fast, good for catching, a bit low on stamina, but otherwise it works just fine. Then at level 26 you get access to Fenglope here, putting it a little bit in B tier just because it does scale with the partner skill, but at this stage of the game you're not really gonna want to be catching probably like 117 Fenglopes just to get that 4-star rank. But it can be very nice. Like, what you do want to do with Fenglope, if you have one, is jump off cliffs with the partner skill and do the double jump stuff. It can travel pretty far that way. Just a fun pal, very low sort of gravity scale on it, working pretty nice. Tyrantris unlocked at level 28. You can't use your weapons on it, but it's fun for, it can do this sort of, it has a built-in grapple, let's say. It has this web, which basically just works as a mounted grapple gun. And it can do this sort of double jump when grappling. So on flat ground or slightly downhill, it can get around very fast, and it can also get up cliffs pretty well. And it is available pretty early in the desert at a decently low level. The big desert, that is, with like Palladius and Necromus. But at the same time, like, you can't use your weapons on it, and it is a pretty weak pal. You're not going to be doing the same kind of mass catching on it that you do with something like Univolt. But it is a pretty nice early game option with that grapple effect. So Fingloop and Tarantris is just what kind of interaction you prefer here with like double jumps and grapples and low gravity scales. Then Pyrin, just naturally very fast on its own, but it does suffer a bit from the same thing that Ragnarok did, that at this stage of the game is going to burn through the Mercy Ring. You do want some skill fruits on it probably if you do want to use it as like your mass catching mount, but just for speed alone, it is fast, and it does give you that sort of root effect thing interaction again that Ragnarok had. And then Dasamu, worth mentioning, very early, level 22, available in the desert with Anubis in it, and there's a lot of them, like it's not a rare spawn, so you probably won't be going around catching 117 at that stage of the game, but just catching like, getting it to 1 star, 2 star, is good enough to just have this fast mount if you stick to the paths. But then again, sticking to the paths can be quite annoying, and it does have some weird interaction with like accelerating very slow but de-accelerating almost instantly. But at the same time, it's just like a pretty good fast mount. Throw a rock burst or air blade on it if you have it, and it will last you through the majority of the game really as your ground mount. Pretty fast, but just for me personally, I don't like the sort of speed up slow down interaction that it has. Level 50 to 65, Gildane, sort of the same thing with Pyron here, just a little bit slower but has a lot more stamina, double the stamina, available at level 54. So like all the Faebreak pals, just available pretty late. Does do the same thing as Anubis, converts your damage to ground, gives you 20% more attack, and you can do some pretty cool rock burst combos on it by just running into melee range. But overall, not something that I would use as my main mount really here. It's just a nice option, but at level 54, you could even have like a Jet Dragon or something. So it really just suffers from being available so late. And it's also like just slower max speed than Pyron. It could have had some other things going for it, but it is mainly used as an element, a conversion mount for combat if you are using it against like phase 2 Rio or something like that. Then Ashermain, something I really like, just that it's again available so late, level 56, but decent speed and stamina. And then the way the partner skill works is that you get this sort of teleport thing. You can use it to dodge skills. It's sort of a mini blink kind of skill thing, but it does reduce the cooldown on it when you rank it up to 4 stars, to the point where you don't need to use move speed passives on Ashermain. You can go full combat Ashermain and travel around just as quickly as if you had move speed passives, just spamming that little teleport skill. It also lets you use it in combat a lot easier. You can teleport to dodge skills, you can go in really close, pop like all range thunder, rock burst, and then move away. So it's just like a sort of perfect sort of hybrid pal, since doing an attack build doesn't hurt it in any way in terms of speed. Just going pure attack passives, surgery table some attack passives, or just going for like eternal engine and stuff like that to do more combat stuff. But at the same time, like, it doesn't drain any stamina while it's doing the teleport skill. So you have a lot of different builds that you can go on it. But just the pure combat build really is the one that I would recommend here, and just abusing rock burst and all range thunder. And then the best all-round mount, ground mount here, is Necromus. Just very fast, a lot of stamina as well, a high attack stat, a great exclusive skill. So Necromus is just a great ground mount and combat pal. And it actually has like a lower saddle level than if you compare it to something like Ashermain or Gildane. Just as level 49, depending on if you're able to catch it or not, can be a little bit of a struggle. But overall, just this twin spears together with rock burst. Dark pals do very well with rock burst as well. Does suffer a little bit for being dark as well. Like, you'll get beam slicer and blast cannon against some bosses, but just as a mount, like running dungeons, it has fallen off a little bit with the changes to hitboxes. So now there's not really any reason to use Necromus over Jet Dragon, because Jet Dragon can just fit in all the dungeons. But as a ground mount, like if you're limiting it to ground mount, it is the overall best one. Just in terms of speed, does get move speed bonus as well with ranking it up in the condenser, each star giving it a little bit more speed. So overall just a great ground mount. And then water mounts, it's not really that complicated, let's say. So for level 5 to 25, you have Ash-Robe, you can use Elfidron Aqua as well. It's a bit of a hybrid one here, Elfidron Aqua. And then we have Surfent, so just at level 10, Surfent will keep you going. So really the natural progression for water mounts will just be like Surfent, German Tide, Neptilius. And then we have just a couple of options here, I guess, with like Walaska and Gangler boosting a little bit of fishing. But at the same time, like Gangler's fishing boost, if you're just looking for fishing, it's the Walaska Ignis that has the best partner skill for that. Gangler and like the tech level as well here, the jump is pretty high. So you could make like a fishing mount, I guess, of Gangler or Walaska, and then when you do unlock this saddle, just transition into these two. But I think, yeah, Walaska Ignis has the clear best one there. And then when you're fishing, you're not really looking for move speed. It's more like the partner skill, because you're not swimming around on your fishing mount probably. It's more using your Jet Dragon or whatever fast mount you have. That's more for salvaging, where we're looking at move speed. And then you just go Surfent, German Tide, Neptilius. German Tide also has this partner skill, increases move speed, and Neptilius has that as well. Or swim speed rather. So yeah, just not really worth going for these, I guess. Like, not sure when you would want to use Asherobe. It's mainly if you're doing this sort of electrify combo with it, I guess. That it is more of a combat-oriented pal with player damage. You could give it some electric skills. When you electrify a target, the player and Asherobe will deal double damage with the water attacks for Asherobe and the water conversion for the player. And Elfidron Aqua, I mean, it is this sort of hybrid. It can be pretty fun to use it. But just in terms of salvage, it's Surfent, German Tide, and then Neptilius when you do unlock their saddles. So that's it really for the mount progression tier list hybrid thing here. Not everything is perfectly set in stone here. There's a couple of odd choices like Rushore, but I did want to bring it up just for that Paldeon fragment farming, giving you a ton of Paldeon fragments. Just go into the cave like next to Zoe's tower, and you will get a ton of that stuff and not really have to worry about crushing anything. Then you can just skip the crushing Paldeon fragments entirely. And then the thing with just having these like skill fruits bringing Ragnarok up is worth mentioning as well again. So if you do have like find a lightning streak while leveling, then you can just use Ragnarok instead of Beacon once you do unlock that saddle. So yeah, that's it for this mount tier list. Thanks for watching.